Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. Our guest today, retired Major General Paul Vallely, is a military analyst for Fox News Channel. He retired in 1991 from the U.S. Army as Deputy Commanding General, U.S. Army Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. During his 32 years in the Army, he also served many overseas theaters, including Europe and the Pacific Rim countries, as well as 2 major combat tours in Vietnam. He is also author of Operation Sucker Punch, Blood for Our Future. Welcome, Major General. How are you today?
Thank you, Kurt. Happy to join you.
Oh, good. Listen, Paul, where do I start, okay? First, let's start with Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is now assembling his new Israeli government. He's always been hawkish, and I hope he's still a little hawkish, but he almost is coming off as a little bit more moderate these days. Paul, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, Kurt, I don't even use that term hawkish or dove anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't really relate to, the real world. I would put those leaders that are warriors, that stand by traditional values, and I think that's what Bibi is. He's a very strong leader in comparison to Olmert and Lipsy, who have been in there.
Sure.
He's very focused. He understands the region, the area. He's more of a strategic thinker. And so I think it's very, very positive for Israel that he's been asked to form the coalition by President Peres.
All right. Now, what makes you think, what's the reasoning behind bringing him back into power? I've always liked him. I've followed him in the past. Why is he back in power now? Why is the people brought him back?
Well, they've realized how weak the past government has been in regards to Hezbollah, Gaza, Hamas relations, activities with surrounding countries.
Right.
And they've been basically what I call appeasers.
All right.
And that's been Lipsy and Olmert, though they were very strong in the last Gaza offensive.
Sure.
But Bibi certainly, historically, has always been more of a leader that can articulate their policies well.
Yeah.
He can gather support, and from that standpoint, you got to remember you have a lot of left-wing liberals in Israel, just like we do. In the United States.
Paul, can they afford to be pacifists in Israel?
No.
I don't think so. They cannot.
No, not at all.
They are surrounded by enemies, and they just simply can't afford to be passive.
No, that's exactly right. They have to be preemptive. They can't wait till they get barraged with rockets from southern Lebanon, from Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Cross-border attacks that occur, from Gaza.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Bibi realizes there is no two-state solution there. It's a myth.
Right.
And if you've been to Israel and understand it, as I've been many times, there's no way geographically you can create a Palestinian state that's contiguous.
Yeah.
Because you've got Gaza, and then you have to go miles up over the Judea, Samaria into the West Bank. And then you have the border of Israel that goes around the West Bank between that and Jordan, and Syria, and then Lebanon to the north.
Right.
The second myth is a peace process.
It's not possible.
There is no peace process.
It's not possible.
And not possible without the strategy, unless you, what General McInerney and I wrote in Endgame several years ago, The Blueprint for Victory in the War on Terror, which is another book I wrote.
Sure.
That unless you neutralize the external forces of Syria and Iran,
right,
you're never going to solve anything between the Palestinians and Israelis.
Let's move on to Iran. Why is it such a big surprise that all of a sudden they have enough material to build a nuke when, everybody last year was saying, don't worry about nukes, don't worry about nukes, it's power, it's peace. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? I've looked into the eyes of Ahmadinejad, and he is a crazy man. Okay?
Yes, he in the 12th Imam. He's waiting for the 12th Imam to get back. But the new book I have out, Operation Sucker Punch, is about the Middle East boiling over and Israel and America come together to neutralize the Islamic regimes that are supporting terror.
Yeah.
And it's based with a lot of fact. Of course, the characters are fictitious to protect the innocent, but
Sure.
all the intelligence in Sucker Punch is there. But it goes to the fact that the United States, as well as Israel, have not had any overriding strategy. Everything's been dealt with like directly with Iraq or Afghanistan, and even my sources in Afghanistan are so frustrated because there's no unity of command there.
Right.
There's no overall strategy that people can focus on for victory.
All right.
So here we're the same thing in Iraq.
What would the world be like with Iran with a nuclear bomb?
Well, two things here. Number one, they've been working with the North Koreans on the delivery system, the Taipong Shahab missiles.
Yeah.
They, in fact, with the launching a couple of weeks ago of a satellite, they do have a delivery system. They do have nuclear. I think they already have nuclear weapons myself, from what I gather from my Iranian sources.
Right.
So I think we're naive to think they don't. Now the question is, then that gives them two capabilities, Kurt. Number one, the capability to deliver a missile with a warhead.
Right.
But number two, it allows the nuclear threat to be carried in by a freighter, as Joel Rosenberg clearly outlines a scenario in his book, Dead Heat, where the freighters offshore launch the Shahab missiles into New York, Washington, D.C., and so on. So that scenario is possible. The other scenario is to come in by truck down the Northeast Corridor, say from Canada.
Okay.
That scenario is there.
No.
So you've got two capabilities that you don't want to allow Iran to be able to proliferate because their intentions aren't good.
Okay, let's move on to domestic. We've got gun control. I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but during Katrina, authorities actually went out and stripped Americans of their rifles, stripped, and they asked, and hunters were even saying, well, can you at least give us a receipt? And they said, well, if we gave you a receipt, then we'd be out here all day long.
Totally illegal.
They stripped Americans, decent, hardworking, decent Americans of their firearms and stripped them of their Second Amendment right, and hardly anybody knows about this now. In the new stimulus package, what's going on now is other things that are looking at medical records. They're looking at stripping even more people of their rights. And there's also another bill that's being passed going through Illinois that's going to require gun owners to have insurance up to $1 million, an ongoing expense to have the right of their weapons, their arms, if you will. Was there some backdoor policies going on here? Should we be
absolutely
concerned?
There are, and they're being moved along by the Obama administration, H.R. 45. We also have a bill here in Montana to make sure that the federal government does not infringe on Montana citizens from owning any guns and any ammunition.
Right.
What's with that? What they're really saying, I heard, is we want to get the guns off the street. But with those guns they're talking about are ones that belong in the hands of private citizens, with their right to protect their families and property, versus the criminal element, who are going to continue to have weapons under the black market and trading and buying and so on.
You strip Americans of their gunship ownership, and then we've got big problems, because then you really have a passive. You got a civilian ship that cannot fight back if they had to, if they needed to. Unbelievable. H.R. 645, you may be familiar with it. We got FEMA encampments going up, and we're almost out of time. Can we touch on that quite briefly? H.R. 645, by the way, folks, Hastings put in 6 encampments around the United States on military bases. Good thing or a bad thing?
Say that again, Kurt?
Yeah, 645, H.R. 645, Hastings in Florida has put a bill out there for 6 encampments in military bases across the United States, and apparently it's for FEMA, for population. All right, listen, we're out of time. I wish I could get into this now. Paul, you have Operation Sucker Punch, Blood for Our Future. Where can we find a copy of that at?
That's on StandUpAmericaUSA.com. StandUpAmericaUSA.com. All of our books are on there, and all the latest information and intelligence we publish every day before 9 a.m.
All right, thanks for being with us.